Welcome to What Shall We Say to These Things.
I'm TJ.
And I'm MJ.
And this is a low-key ghetto Bible study.
Yes, it is. And this week we're looking at Genesis chapter 20. We're continuing the Abraham story. We're back talking about Abraham himself. Mm-hmm. And this is the point where we ask you to pause and say a prayer.
All right. So let's get into our summary. This is going to be a pretty short chapter. In terms of length, but also what actually happens in the chapter. There's not a lot going on.
Okay.
So, I grouped it in just two parts, kind of like night and day. So let's look at it. So our first portion is looking at verses 1 to 7, and we want to backtrack a little bit because in chapter 18 we find that Abraham is in Mamre, and he's near. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's what it looks like, right? And this is where he was when the Lord visited him.
Okay.
But by chapter 20, he has moved south to Niger, and he stayed there for a while, and then he moved, and he went to live between Kadesh and Shur, and then from there he moved to Gerar. And while living in this new place, Abraham introduced Sarah, his wife, to everyone as his sister. We remember this happening, like deja vu?
Yeah.
And the king of Gerar, Abimelech, heard this and had Sarah brought to him to live with him in his palace. And one night, God appears to Abimelech in a dream and tells him that he, Abimelech, is as good as dead because Sarah, the woman he had taken, was someone's wife. And at this point, Abimelech has not touched Sarah. And we know what they mean by that, right? So he answers God and he asks, will you destroy the innocent? Didn't he introduce her to me as his sister? And didn't she agree? Yes, this is my brother. I have done nothing wrong. My conscience is clear and my hands are clean. And God answers him in the dream and says, yes, I know. You went into this innocently, and I have kept you from touching her, so you would not sin against me. Now give the man's wife back to him. He's a prophet, and his prayer for you will let you live. But if you keep her, you and all those who belong to you will die.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. Okay, so yeah, we've been through this. We've been through this. I don't know why I didn't, but I meant to go back and read the Egypt one to see the similarities.
But like my first note is Abraham hit hard. Brother man just not learning. Like you've had this experience before and you're gonna do it again?
Yeah.
Do it again?
Yeah. Actually before that I was wondering why Abraham left. I was like I'm assuming there's little what's the word? There are not a lot of people on the earth right now, so like there's a lot of land available, but I was thinking it's possible that he ran out of pasture for his animals, or I completely understand why he would want to move after witnessing the whole Sodom situation. Just looking down at the ruins would not be fun. So
it probably smelled horrible for a while after.
Yeah. Lots of sulfur. So yeah. But yeah, my next point is Abraham is a stuck record. I don't know. My first thought was like, doesn't he know that he can't die before he becomes a father?
Listen, I have that in my notes. I don't even think it's this section. I think it might be the next section. But I have that, right? Yeah.
But I don't know if he, in his mind, because like we've been through Abraham's experience, and he's not always, he believes 1 minute and then the next minute he's not sure. Because in his head, maybe he thinks he's already a father in terms of Ishmael. Or he's like been so, he has so much faith that he actually believes, I don't know how long it's been since the visitors came by, but if it's been like more than half a year, he might think, okay, maybe my services have already been rendered. And although to me the whole point of Abraham's story is that his services were not needed. They were not necessary. So I don't know. That was a strange.
I go into that in the
the second
part.
Okay.
Full detail, all my thoughts and views on that in the second part. So yeah.
Okay. Right.
But my thought is that I was thinking about it because I know when we did the Egypt one, we were talking about the fact that Sarah was so old at that point, but she was already a hot girl.
Yeah.
For that, the king of Egypt to summon, be sent specifically for her. And here we fast forward so many years later, when according to most accounts, she's probably in her 80s, 90s, and we have the same thing happening again. Yeah. So Sarah was the ultimate legit hot girl. And yes, I understand that we going off of our base concept of what a 90-year-old looks like now, which would probably not be the case back then when they're living to 400.
Right.
But
yeah, she's been around for a while, and kings are still I
want her.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That is something to take note of. And so you kind of understand Abraham's fear. He's like, okay, I'm going around with this beautiful woman. Of course, people are going to want to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's another thing I talk about in the second part.
Oh, okay. Okay, we haven't gone there yet. Yeah. Okay, what struck me? Okay, first of all, I was like, that must be terrifying to get a dream from. I don't know. We don't know what it was like in terms of gods at that point in time. We don't know if everybody is still. They might have a different name for the God who created the world, but we don't know if everybody worships him. We don't know what gods Abimelech have, but just having a dream, recognizing from God, that must be terrifying. And then him being like, "You dead." That on top of that would be terrifying. But what struck me was Abimelech's question: will you destroy the innocent? And it brought me right back to Abraham asking God, will you destroy the whole
for 50 righteous people? If there are 50 people.
Well, right. That doesn't seem like you to destroy the righteous along with the wicked. And it's just interesting to me for that this is a recurring concept of who God is. In my concept of the Old Testament God has always been right. Has always been about you see a lot of immediate
but
destruction.
We have that clear concept of God with the ark.
Right.
So and he's willing to save those who want to be saved.
And I don't know that it's as that concept of God is so obvious in the fact that I had never thought about not thought about it, but it's not as as I guess blatant as you would expect it to be with the entirety of the Old Testament, when so many people can see it. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Abraham says it. Abimelech, who we don't know what his where his loyalties in terms of gods lie, he has the same concept of God, and I guess it doesn't align with my concept of just people in the past and their concept of gods as being merciful. To me, the concept has always been the gods will do what they want. It is just our job to appease them, not that the righteous are in a sense always safe.
I don't know that it's always safe, but I think we see these two men who have the belief that they can ask God for the righteous to be safe.
Oh, okay.
And I think you were saying about the different in perception, but I think it's different where this is their we get the retelling of the story, but this is their lived experience.
In what sense?
So you were talking about the sudden destruction, but we don't know what was happening on the ground with the sudden destruction. We don't know if, like with Lot, there were people being saved.
Okay, right. And in every in the Old Testament, where there is such huge destruction, we don't know unless we on the we getting it from the perspective of the people who are being saved. So like Jericho, we find out
Rahab.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So like I was just thinking how skewed my view of God in the Old Testament is, because I've been only looking at it from one perspective. Yeah.
I had I was I can't believe I wrote that, but I think it was funny. I wonder how much smaller the world's population would be if God was just wiping people out for being with other people's wives.
Oh no!
I'm just like, if it still stood. Granted, I feel like God had like very particular reasons for doing this with this particular wife, because she had a very, very set purpose.
Right. Yeah.
But I feel like the principle is the principle. Right? And I think
because a whole nation was at risk. Bro. A whole nation. Listen, oh my goodness.
I was like, there'd be like 2 people alive.
But I was reading the this is the immediate result of us studying 2 books at once. Right. We also studying Exodus at the while we're doing Genesis, and the speech God gives to Abimelech was giving me very much let my people go. It was, this is what I want you to do. Let Sarah go, and if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen to you. Yeah. So I saw a parallel there of
Okay, he has an approach.
Yeah.
He has an approach. Yeah. But I took a very liberal take in my notes for the interaction between Abimelech and God, and I was like, Abimelech was like, hey God, how is Mia? The people said they were siblings, and I believed them. Not my fault, huh? Yeah, and I thought it was just interesting, because like you were saying, he is telling God like, this isn't my fault. I'm innocent here. This has nothing to do with me. The man said what he said. I believed him. How is this my fault? And God's response I found was interesting as well, because God was like, basically, yes, I know you're innocent, and I have deliberately kept it that way. Now give the man back his wife before you become guilty. Yeah. So that was interesting to me.
Yes.
You have anything else on this section?
I don't think so. I think everything else is about the next part.
Okay. So the next part is verses 8 to 18. And so very early the next morning, after he's had this dream, Abimelech calls all his servants together, and he tells them what happened. And they were all afraid. And next, Abimelech calls for Abraham and confronts him. And he's like, what could I have done to you for you to bring this trouble on me and my kingdom? Why have you done this? And Abraham told him, I thought to myself, these people do not know God. They will be willing to kill me if they want my wife. And the truth is, she is my sister. We have the same father but different mothers. And so I married her. When God told me to leave my father's house and move from place to place, I asked her to spare me by telling people I was her brother. Then Abimelech took some of his sheep, goats, and cattle, male and female servants, and gave them to Abraham. He also gave him back his wife Sarah. Abimelech said, look at all my land. Pick a spot, live wherever you want. Then he spoke directly to Sarah and said, I am giving your brother 1,000 shekels of silver. This is to pay for any wrong I may have done to you. This is to clear any charges against me and to clear your reputation. Then Abraham prayed to God, and God heard the prayer and healed Abimelech, his wife and female servants, so that they could have children. God had made all the women infertile because of what had happened with Sarah, Abraham's wife. My first thought was that I appreciated that he brought all his servants together and told them this is what's up. Because I feel like as king, as leader, he didn't need to do that. they didn't need to be in the know, but he made the
okay.
decision. So I liked him as a leader for that.
Oh, okay. Definitely. I didn't think about that. Yeah. But yeah. But I wonder, like, in terms of time span, how long had Sarah been in the house?
Well, that's my very last point, because I'm like, she had to have been there for long enough for the infertility to become evident.
That's what I'm saying. How did
Yeah.
they know? How did they know?
Yeah.
I
So
guess.
that was my very last point. That she had to have been there for a while.
Okay. That's interesting. I always think about it as in she's there for one night and he gets the dream and he's like, oh no, you're going back.
But if you think, because I think there's a version I read that kind of gave that illusion.
Okay.
That it was just like one day. But if you think about it, God talks about keeping him from touching her. That kind of points to there having been some time.
I interpreted it as the dream, as God. That was God's attempt to keep him from touching her.
I felt like God had been working overtime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
My next point is that Abraham was really sure his wife would be the reason he got killed. Like, but I'm sure. Like, she gonna be the reason.
She gonna be the death of him.
She gonna be the death of him.
But my first point was actually a parallel between Lot and Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have on multiple occasions Lot finding favor, either because of Abraham or God is like, I like this guy, I'm going to protect him.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of when everybody got kidnapped and after the war, and in terms of he escapes Sodom before its destruction and goes to Zoar, and Zoar gets saved.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of Lot's favor with God, other people get saved. And I'm looking at it the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham makes this rash decision. Well, maybe it wasn't rash, because like he thought this through from the beginning when they started traveling, right?
Mm.
And he makes this decision, and because God is with him, because God needs Sarah for his specific purpose, other people get put in danger.
Yeah. Yep.
And it was just a reminder that like it goes both ways. I have always thought of it as, oh, that's nice to stick around those kinds of people because you get to benefit from protection
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. But like they make one wrong move and
Everybody get wiped out.
yeah.
And it's interesting because God promised Abraham that nations will be blessed because of you. And here he is being the possible cause of an entire nation's damnation. So, but I think, and you were saying that it's a decision he's made from the beginning. But the note I made was that Abraham says he thought to himself, right? It means this is a conversation he had with himself. Right? That these people don't know God, so they're gonna kill him because they might want his wife.
Okay.
Right? But I was thinking that this is not a conversation he had with God.
Ah, okay.
Right? Because, like you were saying, this is the same God who promised him that he would have descendants. Initially promised him he would have descendants, and then in the most recent promises has promised him that he will have descendants through Sarah. Right? So one, obviously he can't die until that happens. Two, nobody can take his wife until she has that child for him.
Yeah.
So it's like a two-sided thing. Like, have you so quickly forgotten that you need to be around and she has to be with you for this miracle to happen? Like,
Exactly.
what's happening?
But I was thinking about it, and I was like, depending on the time frame, Sarah may have already been pregnant.
Which I think makes it a lot more interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's important that Abimelech does not touch her, so that it can be clear that this is a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
But like
I'd never thought about it.
She passed menopause, right? She's past menopause.
Anyhow she gets pregnant is a miracle.
Exactly. Like sis is past menopause going.
Yeah. But I had never considered that
She
in this
out
story.
after eggs.
I never considered that aspect in the story, that here she is probably already carrying the promised child, and is it the promised child, the child of promise? I don't know. I feel like one of them is Jesus and one is Isaac. I don't know.
I'm not
But
sure.
yeah, I'm like, here she is carrying Isaac probably already, and so it is important that it be known to everybody that that
Abimelech hasn't touched her.
right, and so this is going to be Abraham's child,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, and it's so interesting to me that Abimelech pays money to make that clear. He's like, here's the $1,000. One version I read, it sounded a little sus because he was like, let this be a covering for the eyes. So I don't know if that was in the sense of, like, I get this impression that a lot of the time, like, we get that impression from media. I don't know how true it is that innocent women. Oh no, I feel like Rebecca, who marries Isaac, Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
Her face is covered when she's so I was wondering if it's in that sense of she's pure, so that's what
I
the
have
covering
not
of the
touched
eyes,
her.
right? Yeah,
A veil.
right? Yeah.
I was upset, right? Let me tell you why. Because once again, Abraham gains wealth, right? Because somebody's repaying him for taking his wife. But I don't feel like he's deserving, right? He literally put people's lives at stake because he has a lack of faith. He should not be getting money for that.
Yeah, fair enough.
He should not. That's my personal
And like, I don't understand how is Abraham getting the $1,000 and not Sarah.
Well, I guess at that time, patriarchy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What would she do with the money? You know?
Fair enough.
Mm. But my next point is about Sarah, and I'm like, she's a woman well into her 90s. Why did they assume she was unmarried? Like, and she's a woman well into her 90s. Why does her reputation need to be cleared in silver? Like, either way, this is an old girl. Like, you know? Granted, like, I guess it becomes important because she's somebody's wife. Again, patriarchy. But
like you saying, maybe her age was not evident. Looking at her, like, maybe you don't know. Like, she could be anywhere between 30
and 90.
Yeah. Like, maybe how you look at that point, like, was not a good indication of your age.
Like us.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess, and the lady just traveling around with her brother, just...
Is that not a little sus?
Yeah.
Is that not a little sus? But I think my last 2 points had to do with what you were talking about originally. With the fact of how long Sarah had to have been there for the infertility to become evident. And I was thinking about the fact that God chose that as the punishment, quote unquote. Because I feel like, one, this is Sarah's burden to bear as well, but also that must have been something very, very significant at a time where so much of a woman's value is based on her ability to have children, especially in a royal circle, because heirs would have been needed.
Okay.
So I think it was like, ain't no king babies for the king, ain't no babies for this king. Yeah, so that was I thought that was,
and that would have been something people were paying attention to.
Yes,
you're right.
It would be closely monitored. Yep.
Right. Yep. I like also that Abimelech doesn't kick them out. I as far as I remember, Pharaoh kicks them out.
He's like, get out.
Yeah,
get out.
And I find it interesting. Abimelech wasn't like, I guess, God calls him a prophet. God calls Abraham a prophet, and like, it'd be nice to have a prophet around, but a prophet causing this much trouble, I don't know if I want him in my kingdom. So I found it interesting that he was like, here, take this, go anywhere you want. I would have sent him packing, but like you saying, Abimelech seems to be an interesting leader. Yeah, and I guess Abraham, wealthy as he was, would have helped the economy. So I guess he's thinking about all that, and this dude's prayers will heal people. So yeah, you could keep him around in that sense. It's a little dangerous, but yeah.
Okay. You have any other notes, or you want to read the lessons?
For me.
Okay, so my first lesson about God was one of the ones from last last chapter as well. And it brought me back to that idea of God will go out of his way to save us. Because it made me think of him literally sending angels into Sodom to get Lot and his family out. And here he is waking up a king in the middle of the night to tell him, bruh, you need to send this woman back. So I think it's he gives us the chances and the opportunities, and sometimes he wakes us up in the middle of the night, and sometimes he sends angels to get us out of the mess, but he does whatever is necessary to save us.
Mine is a shade of that, in the sense that I don't know, we get this, I don't know, let me speak for myself. I have this concept that God speaks to specific people, his chosen people, but like over and over, I can't remember when was the last time, I don't remember, but I feel like in our study I was taking note. Esther, when we found out that what's her name, Haman's wife predicts what's going to happen, and it's just a reminder that we have, let me keep speaking for myself, like I have this this distinct idea of who is God's person, who he speaks to directly, but when it's necessary, he will communicate directly with anybody, especially when his message is that urgent. He can speak directly to us, and like, as terrifying as it is, I think it's really cool.
I think part of it is that we have this idea of God communicating in these times through dreams and prophecies and that type of thing. But I think when we're paying attention, we can feel the nudging of the Holy Spirit. We get an idea, and when we think about it, we realize like there's no way I came up with that. It had to be God. So I think we, more than we having the idea that
this has been a very old McDonald's episode. We've had cats in here. We have a dog coughing.
So I think even outside of the idea that God speaks to specific people, I think we have these ideas about how he speaks to people as well. And we're not very open, we're not immediately aware of how he could be speaking to us.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah. Was that the end of your...
I was thinking, I have 3 more points. I don't know if anything you have. But my next one was, it's a reminder that God gives people a choice. We have, again, this is us comparing, this is me studying the Exodus and Genesis at the same time. I thought of Pharaoh, God telling Pharaoh, let my people go or else. And in this sense, he does the same thing to Abimelech. He's like, you could choose to keep Sarah, but this is what's going to happen if you do. But I recommend you let her go. So I like that concept of he gives a choice. And the other, on top of that, I was thinking that his MO seems to be mercy, and that goes back to me not processing that the God of the Old Testament is also a God of mercy. I think of Nineveh. He's like, that goes into the choice as well. Continue going down the path you're going and experience destruction, or repent. And with Abimelech, it was like, I'm stopping you before you go to a place of no return. I'm stopping you before, and I'm giving you the choice. But this is what's going to happen if you make this specific choice, and this is what you can do if you make this choice. So I like that as well. And then the last one, do you have any more points?
I have one more about God. And I think, like, while we point out that Abimelech was innocent, in that he was unaware that, it was a whole person's wife, I think by the end of the day, it was still a mistake on his part.
Okay.
Right? And I think, for me, it was a reminder that even in the midst of a potential mess up, even when I'm not aware that it's a mess up, but like I'm in the heart of a mess up or a mistake, that God is still willing to come down to my level and have a conversation with me.
That is something like the part about the mistake. I that really resonated with me in the sense that, just because we didn't know we did something wrong doesn't mean
it's not
did
something wrong.
Yeah. That really, because I was like, but seriously, he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't know this was somebody's wife, but it still would have had consequences. And so yeah, that was another thing. But I like the message you get from God about it. I hadn't even put that together. That God will come to our level and have a conversation. And my last lesson about God was actually about Abraham, in the sense that here he was making a mistake himself, and a mistake he could recognize, a mistake all of us reading could recognize, Abimelech, Sarah, everybody. But God is willing to save him from the consequences of that action. And I think a lot of the time we our concept is that God will, though he's rescuing us, especially from sin, we still have to suffer the consequences, because it's our choice, it's our decision. But I think there are some there were still consequences to Abraham's decision. He lost trust in he lost Abimelech's trust, and I
feel like everybody else in Gerar would have been watching him funny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there were consequences, but like the most grave ones, God was able to rescue him from them. And I think that is just God, the stepping in even when we were not rescuing us, even when we were not necessarily in the right. Yeah.
I was just looking at my lessons about myself, and I think the last one I have is more of a God one than an actual me one. It says, even when I've made a mess, God is still waiting to hear my prayer and is willing to use me to help others.
Wow. Yeah. I like that thing, me as well. Like, here is the dude going around lying about his wife, and you want me to ask him to pray for me. Yeah, that one struck me as well. Yeah.
I only have 2 lessons about myself. And they both have to do with Abraham.
Same.
I think the first one is that my attempts to protect myself, because that's what I saw Abraham doing, attempting to protect himself. My attempts to protect myself will repeatedly cause more harm than good. I can trust God to take care of me.
Yeah, that's my first one. And just worded a little differently, that because I can get myself into bigger trouble when I try to do it on my own, I could trust God for my protection. And the other one is an extension of that, in the sense that when I'm making decisions, especially ones that this is not what I had, but I think this is what it should be. What I have is that I need to spend time thinking over decisions that impact people more than myself, that impact people other than myself. But I think I want to amend that today, based on a point you made, that this is a conversation Abraham had with himself. I think when I'm making those kinds of decisions, more than anything, more than thinking about it, I need to consult God. Yeah.
A word. My last point is that if I keep God's promises to me at the forefront of my mind, that's going to prevent me from making a lot of mistakes. That's going to save me from so much trouble. Because I honestly feel like if Abraham went into this situation, remembering, fixated on the fact that
just needed to say his name. Brother Mans just needed to say, wait, I'm Abraham, father of many nations. Oh, I'm good.
Yeah, so for me that's, I think, and I said it I initially wrote it in jest, but I was thinking about it, and I was like, there's so many times when I am pursuing certain things, and I'm going after certain goals and dreams that I have, and I'm like, in hindsight, but if I tell myself, if I remember, like, so God says, For I know the plans I have for you, the plans to prosper. Like, if I keep that at the forefront of my mind, right there in mi cabeza, I would save myself so much trouble, so much. So yeah, so those are the two things that I want to implement in my life going forward. Those are my takeaways.
I think that is a great place to end. Yes. So, this has been Genesis chapter 20.
Yes.
Yeah, so we move on to 21 next week, God willing. Right. That's not how we end. This has been What Shall We Say to These Things?
I'm TJ.
I am Jay.
Until next time,
We're out.